Hey, everybody, a massive Wednesday on the Bulwark Podcast Network. On this feed, I've got Olivia Nuzzi with a report from inside the courtroom where she's been with Donald Trump the last 4 days. It's pretty funny. And then they're interviewing Dana Mattioli about her book on Amazon, something we don't spend a lot of time talking about here, the Amazon Behemoth. So stick around for both those. If you want more political hot takes, I'm doing the TikTok ban and what's going on with Mike Johnson and Mitt Romney's takedowns and RFK, everything, polling. That's over on the next level with JVL and Sarah Longwell. So make sure you're subscribed to that. If you want more on the upcoming immunity hearing and also everything Trump trials, George Conway explains it all to Sarah Longwell. They've got a new episode coming up too. So make sure you're subscribed to the next level and George Conway explains it all. I issued you guys a challenge yesterday when it comes to finding me a time where Donald Trump mentions being humble. And I was humbled by your responses, which you're about to find out in a second. But before we get to the one that was maybe not humbling, maybe humiliating for me personally, I would like to listen to the funniest example of Donald Trump talking about being humble with John Dickerson of CBS. Let's take a listen.
When you were in Iowa, you went to a church service. The sermon was in part on humility. What did you take away from that?
Well, they didn't really know I was coming because of security reasons, okay? And so we just sort of showed up. Maybe they changed quickly, or maybe it was coincidence, but it was actually in humility. I don't know. It was very good. It was a very nice service, beautiful church. I liked it.
But with humility. I mean, a lot of people don't think your name is on everything. You have often talked about. You sometimes braggadocio is part of your pitch.
No, I know, but there's more humility than you would think, believe me.
Hidden humility.
We're all the same. I mean, we're all going to the same place, probably one of two places, but we're all the same. And I do have actually much more humility than a lot of people would think.
But you don't want to show it.
I'd rather not play my cards. I want to be unpredictable.
He's the humblest. He's the most humble. Has anybody ever bragged harder about being humble than Donald Trump? I don't think so. One other observation about this one and the next clip I'm about to play. I've always been on the side of the argument that Donald Trump is the same as he was in 1980, that there's no Donald Trump getting worse, no Donald Trump deteriorating. He's always been a dark soul. He's always been a POS. And anybody that's trying to argue that he's gotten worse or things have gotten is just trying to do a post hoc rationalization on why they went along with him in the first place. But man, watching these videos, that video and the next one I'm about to play, both from 2016, there is just a little bit, at least a little bit more joie de vivre about Trump back then. This sad, lonely, skulking, mumbling kind of old man. I'm starting to come around. If you really just watch 2016 versus now, there is a difference. He's still the same bad person at his core, but there definitely has been a deterioration of Donald Trump over the past 8 years in a way that's really stark when you compare, especially early 2016 campaign, or so that's 2015, really, so it's 9 years ago, early 2015 video compared to this recent video from outside the courtroom. Anyway, here's the humiliating one. What you've all been waiting for. Here's Donald Trump talking about being humble.
Ever ready. It's very high energy, Donald. Mr. Trump?
Humble.
That's a good one.
Oh my God, guys. I swear, I think I must have just, if you couldn't see it, so you're just listening. This was the debate where Jeb Bush, my boss, slaps five with Donald Trump after Trump had been just mercilessly attacking his family and his wife and just been a just general asshole. It's just one of those moments on stage where Jeb made a joke and made Trump laugh, and he put out his hand and he slapped five with him. And I swear I must have blacked out. So I was like, how did I not remember Donald Trump saying that his code name would be humble? That's the context of this. When Jeb says that he's ever ready, I think the question was, what will your Secret Service code name be? And I couldn't. It didn't ring a bell. I didn't recall that Donald Trump had made that joke about himself in that very moment, right after Jeb had slapped 5 with him. I love you, Jeb. It happens. It happens to the best of us. But it was a bad. I'm telling you, I blacked out. I blacked out when it happened live. That's why I don't remember. And I'm getting the chills just rewatching it now. So a big, I guess, thanks and kind of a middle finger to Andrew, who grabbed that video and emailed it in. You win the challenge that I laid out yesterday. Donald Trump has mentioned being humble, ironically, and at the expense of my former boss. All right, welcome back. I'm with Dana Mattioli, a reporter covering Amazon for the Wall Street Journal. She's the author of the new book, The Everything War, Amazon's Ruthless Quest to Own the World and Remake Corporate Power. Thanks for coming on the Bulwark Podcast.
Happy to be here.
So I just got to tell you up front, like all these other big tech companies, I intersect with my world way more because of the media news consumption. I mean, Jeff Spot, the Washington Post, of course, but just like the disinformation side of things, the face. And so we don't give as much scrutiny or thought to Amazon around here. So just at the broadest level, get us up to speed at what the essential story was that you were trying to tell and what the big potential, threats or concerns might be.
Yeah, I think for a lot of Americans, Amazon's gotten this free pass because it wasn't involved in like election disinformation per se, right?
And good on them for not getting involved in election disinformation. Low bar these days, but we'll take it.
Right. But it's become this just behemoth of a company with really no modern analog. It's almost like this modern day Standard Oil to the point where it's literally hard to avoid. Even if you're not shopping on them, there's a very good chance you're using something backed by AWS, their cloud server. If you're taking an Uber or Lyft or you're watching Netflix, that's an AWS. They're in healthcare now. In the middle of reporting out this book, they acquired my doctor's office, One Medical. So they have all my labs and my charts and stuff, right?
Really? I loved one. I had a great experience with One Medical out in the Bay Area. They were great.
I did too. I was one of their early users. They are a grocery company, a logistics behemoth. They unseated UPS and in the matter of a few years. That's a 100-year-old giant, right? So they've ascended to be one of the largest companies beyond retail and like all these different tentacles that they've sprouted. It's like the Standard Oil cartoon of the octopus, right? Where it has all of this power across industries and they're able to synthesize and leverage that in really interesting ways.
Yeah. So my natural reaction to this is kind of a free market as a free market sympathizer is I look at Amazon and I get the potential concerns, but as a practical matter, I mean, hasn't Amazon like improved people's lives like wildly on balance? I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like I needed some party supplies just for a party I was throwing on Saturday. I ordered them Friday night. It was at my door Saturday morning. That's pretty good, right? I mean, that's a little bit, that's at least providing some value to my life, unlike Facebook.
Well, it depends on what you're getting. I think the people I've spoken to for this book whose houses have blown up because they bought an electric scooter off of Amazon where the battery exploded would say it hasn't improved their life. Or people who bought toys on the platform that have lead in them for their children because it's an unregulated platform of third-party sellers who sometimes dumpster dive for things to resell would say that it hasn't been a great experience for them. So I think, yes, it's become ubiquitous and it's easy, it's fast, it's free shipping, so it's convenient. But it's not apples to apples as to, going to your local Target store and getting something off the shelf that's been vetted. And it's definitely from the manufacturer, right? Like there's a risk that comes with it too. And this is a company that says that they're customer obsessed, but then there's a lot of discrepancies between that statement and some of their actions. There's a scene in the book where some of Amazon's own employees bring this up. They're worried about the quality of goods coming in the children's apparel side of the business. They lifted this friction because they wanted all this selection from all over the world for their customers. But then things were coming in that were smelling like gasoline, that weren't flame retardant. Really, I feel
like I've gotten some gasoline smelling deliveries.
Hoodies for children with, strings around the neck, which is just a huge strangulation hazard and it's banned in the US. And they raised this to their boss and they said, hey, we're going to add some barriers to entry for the children's space to protect the customer. And he said, don't you do that? That's someone else's job. And this person is now elevated to the head of like customer trust, right? Whereas I don't know, I'm a mother. I don't want my child wearing clothing like that.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and it has avoided the kind of regulatory oversight in a way that some of these other guys have. I want to get into Lina Khan first, but let's hear a couple of the other stories from the book. About the ways that their aggressive culture evolved. Kind of initially, it was really kind of a Seattle company, right? I mean, it had this crunchy reputation. It was about books. Bezos was nerdy. As I was starting to read it, I was I actually didn't realize that Bezos was always a cutthroat finance guy, because those early pictures of him in the garage being a nerd, I kind of thought he was a bookworm that hit it big. That's how zero I knew about the Bezos origin story. But some of the employees were that, right? So talk about like early Amazon and how it evolved.
Yeah, some of the employees were. Jeff was not. Jeff was this hedge fund guy. He was, he understood arbitrage. But when he moves to Seattle, largely because of the tax advantage, not really because he loves Seattle. He moves there
because the coffee culture or Nirvana or whatever.
I don't think he was big into grunge. So he moves there and he hires these early employees to come on and help him build Amazon. And what's interesting about them is they are the granola types. They are mission-based, nerdy. And they join because they want to democratize reading. They think that this is so cool that you could get books to people in far-flung places that can't readily get to their bookstore. And so they're joining for that, not to get rich. But there's a culture difference between him and them. There's a scene in the book where he kind of yells at them you don't have the killer instinct that he clearly has. And Jeff later on would go on to hire people in his image, people that definitely had the killer instinct, and all the old guard leaves. And it's funny, I circled back to a lot of the early 90s employees for this book to see their thoughts on Amazon. Do they use the site? Do they have any misgivings about it? And a lot of them, a majority of the ones I spoke to, even though they became enormously rich working for this company because of the stock options, have canceled their Prime accounts, try to avoid Amazon. And some of them even said, did we help create a monster?
Yeah. Are they doing some guilt charity work? Hopefully,
some of them are.
With
yeah.
that stock money. I hope so. I got that Catholic guilt inside me. I'm hoping that I'm hoping they got doing some guilt charity with that cash. One of the early stories that is a good example of this that I hadn't heard about before was the Diaper.com story. There's some parent company, but it was essentially the Diapers.com and the way that Amazon just squeezed them out. Tell that anecdote.
Yeah. So Amazon says that they're customer obsessed, but they also pay a lot of attention to their competitors. And this is a good example. There was this company, Diapers.com, out of New Jersey that had figured out how to ship diapers to moms and dads across the country in 1 or 2 days. And this is, in the 2010 timeframe when that was not ubiquitous at all.
Yeah.
This definitely catches Amazon's radar. They start getting worried about this company and its logistics prowess and how they're doing it. And they start tracking it. They put together internal documents on this whole plan to win against Diapers.com, a 12-step plan. So they start discounting their diapers and offering promotions. They're trying to steal share from this new upstart. And Diapers.com tries to compete with them. And Amazon becomes interested in just buying them out, buy out the competitor. And what's interesting here is Diapers.com resists. They don't really want to be owned by Amazon. And Amazon then slashes the prices of its diapers by 30%. They start losing $200 million a month on diaper sales just to stick it to Diapers.com.
Moms start to get Prime for free.
Moms get Prime for free.
So here's me as a consumer. I'm pretty good. Hey, moms are getting Prime for free. I like that.
Amazon consumers are loving this. How could it's pretty much getting? Not pretty much. They're getting diapers below cost, and it's at this point that Diapers.com starts missing all of its projections. They can't compete. They realize there's predatory pricing going on, but they don't really have recourse. And then they do have to sell the company. They really don't want to sell to Amazon. They start engaging with Walmart. They get an offer. They engage with Amazon. They get an offer. And Walmart actually makes a really great superior offer to Amazon's while they're at dinner with Amazon's leadership. And they look at their BlackBerry. They get an email from Walmart with this great offer, $100 million more than Amazon's offering them. And they tell the executive team at the dinner, hey, we're going to take this Walmart offer. And they're threatened. They say, okay, you want to sell to Walmart? we'll slash the diapers prices on Amazon to $0. So basically, we'll put you out of business. And in deal making, there's something called a MAC clause. So if you sign a deal to be acquired, but something materially horrible happens to your business in the interim, the buyer could walk away. So that's kind of the threat they were making. Like, good luck trying to sell it to our rival. And Quidsy or Diapers.com was forced to sell to Amazon, which they really hated, at $100 million less than what Walmart was offering them. And it was actually a really sad moment for the founders. They didn't even go out for a drink to celebrate. They felt like they sold out to this company that was making their life hell.
Yeah. What about the Trader Joe's example? That was also one that struck me.
I love this story too. Amazon has a really cutthroat culture that starts with Jeff and filtered down into the company, where it's like almost like the Hunger Games when it comes to the employees there. Like, they're really brilliant, but a lot of them 6% of them get cut at the end of the year. And a lot of the really shocking behaviors in the book are driven by this crazy culture. So, Trader Joe's. Amazon was launching this private label food brand called Wickedly Prime in 2015. And they even wrote a 6-pager, which is how they pitch things to management, which is like a dream for a reporter because you get these 6-pagers, saying that their goal for this brand is to copy the top 200 best-selling items at Trader Joe's. But they couldn't figure out what those items were because Trader Joe's is secretive. They don't have online shopping or reviews, so it's kind of hard to figure it out. Mm-hmm. To help them, they go and poach this woman from Trader Joe's snacks business. She interviews for the job at Amazon. She's not really told what exactly she'd be working on. It's a little bit hush-hush. And then her first week in Seattle, she's walking around headquarters and she stumbles upon this conference room. And it's got brown paper covering the windows and the glass in the door so no one could see inside it. She's intrigued. She walks in and it's just filled with boxes of Trader Joe's snacks. And she starts piecing things together.
Avocados, the chili and lime flavored tortilla chips.
I see that you're a fan of Trader Joe's.
I was at one time.
So she gets a little panicked, like, what the hell am I being hired for? And then it becomes abundantly clear because her manager starts saying, hey, what documents do you have from Trader Joe's? I want them. And that, like, obviously a huge breach of her NDA, possibly corporate espionage. So she resists. She doesn't want to share this because it's some, it could be deemed illegal too. She resists. She doesn't hand him over, but the pressure becomes so much that she winds up emailing him and the team a spreadsheet of their top selling items over the course of the week. Feels really bad about it. And then he doesn't stop there. He says, give us the margins too. So that she fights back. He screams at her, just give us the data. She cries in the middle of the office and it gets reported to legal because this is not normal business practices. The team gets fired, but it's just emblematic of this broader culture there. And stuff like that happens all the time, like literally all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
At Amazon.
You're starting to make me feel a little bit worse about my Prime, story by story here. Hey, JVL, it's been months since I've seen you without a screen intermediary. I'm just dying to lick your face and put my hands on you. And so are you going to come do some public events with us and be among the people?
Human contact? Yes, I'm going to do it. I'm coming out of the house. I'm leaving the basement for 2 days. May 1st in Philadelphia and May 15th in Washington, D.C.
This will be the first Bulwark event where we encourage jeering because it's Philly, people, so jeer us.
Yes.
May 1st.
If we have a bad show, I expect the Philly crowd to boo us.
Please. Or anyway, even if it's a good show, boo us anyway. We deserve it. May 1st in Philly, May 15th, 6 and I Synagogue in Washington, D.C. Come hang out. Go to thebulwark.com/events to get your tickets. Thebulwark.com/events. And JVL, I just can't wait to get all up on you. I want to talk about the DC side of things. The book, I guess probably you're starting working on the book before this, but in a lot of ways it's pegged to the Lina FTC lawsuit at Amazon against Amazon for being a legal monopoly. It was the fall of 2023 that they began engaging in this. My instincts, I got to tell you, Lina Khan's getting complimented by J.D. Vance and Matt Gaetz. It's making me very it's making me question things. I'm like, when the far left and Matt Gaetz and J.D. Vance are agreeing on something instinctively, my guard goes up. So talk to us about the case and, and basically the arguments that she's making.
Yeah, I will. But to your point on that, it's so strange. It's the weirdest bedfellows on this fight.
Yeah.
It's in something that these sides can't agree on, but this is what they agree on. Okay, so Lina Khan obviously made her name. In 2017, she writes this law review article about Amazon saying it's a monopoly. She's a law student at the time. No one really knows who she is, but it goes viral and it really elevates her career. And people start questioning if Amazon's a monopoly. It was this darling. People love their Prime, to your point.
Right.
And people weren't thinking about the other effects of this company at that time period. But it's the first time when people started to use the word Amazon and monopoly in the same sentence. She has this meteoric rise. She becomes a legal counsel to Congress on their investigation into big tech. She has all these other positions. And then in 2021, President Biden picks her to be the head of the FTC, the youngest in the agency's 100-year history, which is something that shocked a lot of people, including people at the agency.
Yeah.
And definitely Amazon, because this was kind of their Ida Tarbell. She had started all these problems for them, and now she's at the head of the agency regulating them. So in September, the FTC filed a lawsuit against Amazon. It sort of comes full circle. It says that Amazon is this monopoly, that it is hurting sellers on the site and customers, and it's raising prices for consumers on Amazon.com, but also in the entire internet online economy. And that's where we're at now. That was in September.
And what is the kind of timeline status latest on that?
So they will be starting discovery soon. These things move really, really
Very
slow.
slowly.
It won't go to court until October 2026.
Oh, wow. And so then what, Bezos has been, you write about this a little bit, like not exactly deft at navigating Washington, I guess, as evidenced by the fact that, his nemesis got put at the head of the FTC. You might think that they could have lobbied the administration on that one. Talk about just their engagement with Washington altogether. In a lot of ways, they have gotten, as I mentioned at the top, kind of avoided the type of scrutiny that you might expect to date. But talk about their engagement with Washington and the regulatory regime and Congress for that matter.
Some of the hilarious stuff in the book was related to this. Jeff has always been really disinterested in the DC side of being a corporate titan. Mm-hmm. He told his head of government relations years ago, hey, if I wanted to go to the Hill and do this stuff, I wouldn't have hired you. Just leave me out of it. And to the point earlier, he could be really pugnacious. He could be reactionary. He's not really someone who's diplomatic on that sort of stage. So there was this weird dichotomy where the company still thinks it's a startup, but it's hundreds of billions of dollars. It's starting to crush Main Street. It's being called into question by other competitors about its tactics. And Jeff saying, we're small, we're misunderstood, not really wanting to spend the time in DC. So in 2013, the board starts telling him, hey, we have to take this seriously. We need to bring in a heavy hitter here. We can't avoid DC anymore. They wind up bringing on Jay Carney, the Obama spokesperson, in 2015 to head up government relations and PR, a really big hire for the company. He reports right to Jeff. And this scenario plays out. The people in DC, he builds out this team. They start spending a lot of money on lobbying. They get really good people in DC, people from the FTC, the DOJ, who worked on the Hill, that understand government relations. They understand that you have to be diplomatic and extend the olive branch and all this stuff. But in Seattle, Jeff and his team, who do not understand DC, would be reactionary and oftentimes rude. He would tell his team whenever there was criticism, punch back. So
right.
There's scenes in the book where he and his deputies are on conference calls for hours, ginning up nasty tweets to senators that are determining the company's legislation,
Yeah.
Whether the company's going to be broken up. And the DC team.
I kind of remember. I didn't actually go back and look, but I have this memory of being in DC in that area and being on Twitter, obviously, and seeing Jay Carney would occasionally send stuff, and I was like, that's kind of aggro for Jay Carney as a company spokesperson. But so the context here is that he's getting pressured by Jeff and the team.
He took on a lot of Jeff's demeanor here, and they would just attack Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. They came out swinging. Jeff gets into a whole pissing match with Joe Biden that backfires, where the Biden, Amazon's leadership learns that the Biden administration starts viewing Amazon and Bezos as too toxic to touch. So he never gets an audience with Joe Biden while Jeff is CEO. He doesn't get invited to these roundtables. And there's these funny scenes where Jay Carney, who seemed so well positioned with the Biden White House, he worked for the vice president at the time.
Yes.
All his friends are in senior positions. He's literally texting them, pleading, saying, please invite us to the next roundtable. Can you include Jeff here? And they're just like, he's persona non grata. You burned your bridges. So the DC team had this saying called watering the flowers. They would try to appeal to different people on the Hill, make Amazon's case, build a good rapport. And then in Seattle, Jeff and his leadership team were just stomping all over the flowers, undermining their efforts, sabotaging everything. And they had this scorched earth approach to DC that really did not help the cause.
Yeah, it's kind of really amazing that in spite of that, they've still sort of avoided, some of these actions, though I guess maybe it's coming now just slowly but surely. I do wonder on the other side of the fence, obviously he doesn't have a good relationship with Trump either. You have though you do mention a funny story about how his are they married? His new wife? Is it
Sanchez, they're not married yet.
Yeah, the new girlfriend at Kellyanne Conway have hit it up. But Donald Trump obviously does not like the Jeff Bezos Washington Post, which he bleats about all the time. Are they concerned about a Trump administration and and them being on the retribution list? How do they kind of see? Obviously, they don't have a good relationship with Biden either. But how do they see this matchup?
Are they concerned now, or were they concerned the first time?
Now,
they have really awful choices. Both administrations have been really bad to them. And in some ways, they were more concerned about Trump to begin with because there was all this vitriol. Trump was tweeting about Bezos. He was tweeting about the Washington Post. He was calling Amazon a lobbying arm. And before he became president, he said, this is a monopoly. I'm going to break them up, right? So they were worried about that, and they were unprepared for it. Interesting thing is the Trump administration was all bark, no bite. And I asked Peter Navarro, I said, if you guys were so concerned that Trump thought this was a monopoly, why didn't you do anything? And he said, well, we would have gotten them in a second term. Who knows? The Biden administration, they don't send nasty tweets and stuff like that. But it's been so much more damaging for Amazon. They've been totally shut out. At the Trump White House, they actually had some backdoor meetings and had some cooperation with his administrators and aides. The Biden team is not really friendly to Amazon. They picked Lina Khan to head the agency regulating Amazon, which was like a huge blow. There's a scene in the book where Klobuchar leaks that at a hearing, and the Amazon people are watching it, and they just say, like, what the fuck? Did she just say that Lina Khan's going to be at the FTC? And she didn't even say that it was going to be the head of the FTC at the time, I don't think. She just said she's going to be on the FTC. So that was a huge blow. And then he's also kind of trolled them a little bit. I don't know if it's intentional, but he's welcomed all of Amazon's biggest rivals to the White House with open arms. Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, Chris Smalls, the agitator from the Staten Island Amazon warehouse that was the union activist, whereas he won't meet with Bezos. So it's been a really interesting dynamic to see play out, that both presidential candidates are not at all Amazon friendly.
It'll be interesting to keep watching, and we need to do more Lina Khan on here. What an interesting character. So we'll keep monitoring that as well. Dana, thanks so much for doing this well-reported book. It was good. I like learning stuff, about things that are on my radar, but ish. I've just been a normal, average consumer out here, enjoying my prime and not thinking critically about it. So I appreciate you challenging me on that. The book is The Everything War: Amazon's Ruthless Quest to Own the World and Remake Corporate Power. Thanks for coming on the Bulwark Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
All right,
we'll see you guys all tomorrow with another edition of the Bulwark Podcast. SCOTUS is in session looking at the Donald Trump immunity claims. We'll talk about that and much more. See y'all then. Peace.